name is Juan Morales. I am the Senior Staff Field Application Engineer for SmartHQ Pro here at GE Appliances. We're going to do some training today. We're going to talk about how you can diagnose, obviously using our SmartHQ Service Platform. So when we talk about SmartHQ, and of course, I have the app right over here. We're going to show you how to get into the diagnostics of this refrigerator to quickly and easily diagnose, a potential problem that may exist, right? When we talk about SmartHQ Service, we're talking about three major things, right? The first one is, I just mentioned it, efficiency. So we want to make sure that you are as efficient as possible when you go into that service call, right? Or if you're a property management maintenance technician, maybe you have a tenant that's complaining about their dishwasher not draining properly or their fridge not cooling, right? You want to be able to get in and out as quickly as possible. And of course, not have to replace 10 different parts, right? You want to kind of narrow it down to the one part that is needed, if it needs a part at all. So that's efficiency is the first thing. And the second thing is exactly what I just mentioned right now, the ability to reduce cost on the number of parts that you utilize. And one of the beautiful things about SmartHQ Service is that this tool, this diagnostic platform, will actually pinpoint exactly which part you need so that you can confidently replace that one part, right? You can say, okay, I need a main board, or I need a drain pump, or I need a water valve or ice maker for the fridge. Order it from your Encompass rep, and then, it's right there for you. You're going to be able to put it in and have the problem solved. Potentially, you can diagnose it the first time and then get the part and fix it right away. And then the third benefit, right? The third key benefit that I want to talk about today is first-time fix rate, first-time completions. Time and time again, we get customers calling us and saying, hey, thanks to SmartHQ Service, our first-time fix rate has gone through the roof. And there's, many different things that go into that. But one of them is the ability for you to perform firmware updates right from your app. So we're going to talk about that today with this fridge, right? And what I mean by firmware updates is if you have let's say that you have a software-related bug on the refrigerator, right? Something that's causing it to malfunction, but it's not really hardware-related. It's some software glitch that maybe is throwing a fault code. Or I'll give you an example of a dishwasher, right? The user interface is not responding to the touch, right? So the customer goes in, tries to touch the user interface, and it's completely dead. And of course, as a tech, I would say, let's go ahead and replace that user interface and see what happens. But you find out that it's not the user interface, because even after you replace it, it still doesn't work. So at that point, we're replacing maybe a main control board, a wire harness, who knows, right? And by the time it's all said and done, you've spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you haven't even gotten the unit fixed. Now, with SmartHQ Service, there are firmware updates available right on the app that if you flash the board, that particular case, the dishwasher, guess what? The user interface will come back to life. It's like you're bringing it back from the dead almost, right? But you're doing that instantly with no parts and in a matter of, I'm going to say about 15 minutes tops. And when I say 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes from the moment you enter the house to the minute you leave. That's it. You're all set and done. So that's going to increase your first time fix and the time that you save, right? Not only are you going to be able to maybe run another service call, but also think about how much it's costing you to put a technician in the customer's home or in the tenant's apartment, right? Every time you have to go out there a second or third visit, it's money out of your pocket, money out of your bottom line. So our goal is to increase your operational efficiency and make you obviously more profitable. So that's what we're going to focus on today. All right, my friends. So that being said, let's go ahead and quickly get into the details of SmartHQ Service. So for that, we're going to go ahead and just display here, as you can see, our contact info. For those of you that want to reach us, our website is smarthqpro.com/service if you want to learn a little bit more about this product. And of course, if you already have SmartHQ Service and you need to reach us for any support issues, please reach out at smarthqservice.support@geappliances.com. And of course, as Reggie mentioned, there is a new product that we're very excited about. It's the bundle pack. I will be talking about that momentarily. But for now, let's go ahead and quickly get into the system for those of you that may have never seen it before. So at the heart of everything is that Bluetooth module that you see right there in the middle of your screen. And of course, that is going to allow you to connect to the appliance via an RJ45 cable. In this case, we're working with a GE profile fridge, and the port, as you can see from the slide, the port is located right behind the top middle cover. So once you connect, you're going to be able to quickly diagnose anything that's going on with the unit, right? So for example, this technician right here, the little cartoon guy, is saying, how is the compressor? And the compressor is running and everything is great. But of course, there could also be a problem, and we'll get into that in a minute. Now, in addition to the real-time diagnostics, you will also have access to cloud-based service documentation. And this is extremely useful because think about it, right? Sometimes we need to get access to a schematic diagram, or we need access to the service manual or the mini manual that, walked away from the unit for whatever reason. Maybe somebody was there previously, or the customer thought, oh, this is just a piece of paper that I don't need, and they tossed it. And that information is going to be available to you in digital form right from your mobile device. Now, for those of you that have never seen the system, the dashboard screen, this is more or less what it looks like. Okay, so this is exactly what it is that you're going to see as soon as you connect to the appliance. The first thing you'll notice is, obviously, you have a diagnostics section that has fault codes, alerts, and firmware update availability. So that's probably the heart of the app right here, right? The diagnostics section, because that's going to tell you whether or not this product that you have connected to is in need of a firmware update, and you'll be able to perform it right then and there. You'll also be alerted of anything that maybe the customer has done, for example, like shutting off the ice maker or leaving the door open too long on the fridge. That's your alert info. And of course, the fault codes will give you a detailed description of exactly what the fault code means and the time the fault code occurred. So this is extremely important because if you think about it, right, sometimes we need to diagnose a unit and we're not exactly sure why, why something is failing. But if you can get into the service mode, right, and it's not always easy, right? We have to go into the user interface over here, press a series of keys, and then we can pull the fault codes. If you can manage to get into the service mode, then essentially you can pull the fault codes and more or less know what's going on. But if you don't know what the fault code means, you have to either call tech line or look at a service manual somewhere. So it's a bit of a cumbersome process. It's obviously time consuming, but remember, with SmartHQ Service, everything is available to you right at your fingertips. And again, as I mentioned before, you also have access to service documentation. And if you're affiliated with GE Appliances as a servicer, you will also have access to the service bulletins, which will essentially tell you exactly what parts to use, what procedure to perform, any known failures that we may have on any given product. All right. So that being said, my friends, what I want to do right now is I want to use some TV magic over here to display everything that's going on in my mobile device for you all to see out there. So we're going to press a couple buttons here. So here we go. All right. So what we have here is the dashboard screen, and for time purposes, I've already connected the Bluetooth module to the refrigerator's Ethernet port, so that's all done. And of course, my mobile device has been paired with the module. So you have to do that initially. It's not a hard process at all. It takes seconds, literally. But once you do it and you connect to your appliance, the process is very much automatic. So what you see here is, first and foremost, at the very top, you see the Bluetooth connection icon is green, or the indicator is green. This means that we are now connected to the Bluetooth module, right? We are paired, and of course, we're gathering the information from the refrigerator, and it's all going to our mobile device. So they're talking, right? The main board and the mobile device are talking. So what are they saying? Well, it's telling me the model and serial number, first and foremost, so I know that I'm connected to this unit, and I know that everything that's going to show up on my mobile device is related to this unit. The other thing is we can see the diagnostic section. You see that there's a bunch of little hazard triangles, and let's start exploring them, right? Let's start with the first one, firmware updates, because that's probably going to be one of your most powerful tools to use once you acquire this product. So if you click on firmware updates, you're going to notice that the apply button is actually highlighted green. So you can press it, and if you were to press it, it even gives you a second option, second chance to back out of it or to proceed. So if you press that apply button, it says that if you hold down the start button for 3 seconds, the firmware update will go through. For this purpose, I'm going to cancel it because I do need this example for future presentations, but this is essentially how you would perform the updates in the field if you were to come across a unit that requires a firmware update. Now, what's cool about this is that not only is it going to tell you, SmartHQ Service, not only is it going to tell you that you have a firmware update available, but it's also going to tell you which board or boards it is going to update. So in this case, it's saying update summary. It's going to update the main board and the door board. Believe it or not, this refrigerator has two boards that control a bunch of different things in the within the unit. One is in the back, that's the main board, and one is in the top of this door, that's the door board. And it appears that both of these boards require a firmware update. So if you think about going out and doing a repair, right, on this unit that only required a firmware update, you're talking about replacing two parts, and maybe on the first visit you might not even realize you need the second part, so you may only replace one and then have to come back. That's 3 visits you're doing where you didn't need to do that at all. All you needed to do was hit the apply button, run the firmware update, and you're in and out of the house again. 10-15 minutes tops. So that's where we talk about increasing your first-time fix rate. And let me tell you, this tool has allowed service companies to hire a second, a third technician to run more service calls, just because they're able to increase their first-time fix rate. And it's an incredibly amazing tool. Pays for itself within the first couple of visits. For those of you that are watching that have it, I don't have to tell you what it can do for you, but definitely something that you absolutely, if you do GE appliances repairs, got to have it in your toolbox, okay? And of course, you can go ahead and purchase it right from your Encompass rep and call Reggie, or go to your local Encompass store and get the product right then and there. So that's the firmware update section. Now I want to go to the diagnostics, right? Because to be able to fix something, right, to overcome something, you have to understand what a perfect engine it is. You got to understand every single detail about the refrigerator in order to know, potentially what could be causing a problem. But, the reality of it is, unless you read the full service manual, it's kind of hard to do that. SmartHQ Service, with the simple push of a button, if you press the Fold Code key, gives you a little warning that this tool is only for trained professionals like yourself. It gives you right away the fault codes that are in the unit. So immediately I am alerted of 3 fault codes. The first one is the ice box fan feedback is missing. So something went wrong in my ice box where that fan that circulates air in there and creates the airflow so that the temperature can be can stay low. There has been a problem with that. Okay, there's also been a problem with the fresh food fan. So in the fresh food fan section, it appears that there's an issue, and of course the thermistor in the ice maker in the freezer section, it says that there's a problem. So let's just say that I want to look at the middle one, right? F106 and my fresh food fan feedback missing. So it's giving me here a detailed description of what steps to take to diagnose this particular issue. But again, for time purposes, we're not going to go through it. One of the things I do want to point out is that it does give you the date when it happened. So this happened 19 days ago, which is really, really awesome, because think about, how many times we go to on a service call and we ask our customer, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, can you tell me when this happened? Do you know how long ago, you started seeing the problem? And they don't know. It could have happened yesterday. It could have happened a week ago, a month ago or so. SmartHQ Service tells you exactly when it happened, what happened, and what to do about it, right? So now that we know we have a problem with our fresh food fan, one of the things I want to get into a little bit is the temperature values, right? I want to see what the internal temperature values are, because maybe on this particular service call, my customer was saying that the refrigerator is not cooling as it should, right? Maybe their food is spoiling, or maybe their ice cream is melting. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. All they're saying is my fridge is, or even worse, right? They'll just say, fridge is broken, come fix it. And at that point, it's a free-for-all. It could be anything, right? At that point, it could be anything could be wrong with the fridge. So let's go ahead and assess the situation, right? But I don't want to take anything apart. I want to assess it kind of from a bird's eye view and see what's going on, get the overall picture. So all we need to do is press this key in the upper right-hand corner, and in seconds, every single thermistor value is going to be displayed in Fahrenheit. So it's easy for us here in the States, right? Because we read Fahrenheit to see what's going on. So right away, I can see fresh food thermistor, the one all the way up on top, it's showing 56 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature of this fridge right now as we speak. This very second is 9:20 on Friday, the 20th of September. Is it September? Yeah. And right now, at this very second, the fresh food thermistor is showing 56 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not good. Now, think about how easily I was able to get that temperature, right? I didn't have to open the doors and shoot around with my my infrared thermometer, or put in there a thermocouple and look at my multimeter. I didn't have to do any of that. All I had to do is open up my app and everything shows up. And not only that, but I can also see the freezer area. Freezer thermistor is 1.74 degrees Fahrenheit. So that one's okay, right? Freezer seems to be working fine. So now I know the problem's in the fresh food, not in the freezer. And if I look at my evaporator thermistors, look at the evaporator thermistors, the fresh food evaporator thermistor is at minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's telling me there's refrigerant in there. And of course, that's more or less eliminating the possibility of a sealed system issue. It doesn't mean that it's not a sealed system problem. It still could be, but based on this data right away, I know that my problem is more than likely not a sealed system. It's probably some component, maybe a fan, maybe a thermistor, who knows, right? So let's go ahead and dig a little deeper over here. And now we're going to go to our feature called diagnostic feature over here within diagnostics. And within that submenu, you see various different options. So one of the things I want to see is perhaps this door before I arrived was left open for a very long time, right? Or I want to see the history of that thermistor, how it's been working, to see if it's even working properly. So we're going to go to something called cycle history. And in cycle history, this is almost like a data logger, right? It's going to give me the history of every single temperature value within the appliance over the last few days. But not only that, it's also going to tell me if the door has been left open, how many minutes it was left open for, if the defrost heater's kicked in, all of that good stuff. So for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and graph the fresh food maximum temperature, add it to the graph. We're going to graph let's say the freezer maximum temperature. And let's graph the freezer minimum temperature as well. Why not? All right, those three. So if we hit the graph button, all right, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to take myself out of the picture, and I'm going to show you this in sideways view. Take a look at the graph right over here. It's basically telling us what our temperature values have been. The top one shows the fresh food. The bottom one shows the freezer. And clearly, you see that the freezer has been working properly, but the fresh food has not. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if I find a spike somewhere. I don't really see a spike right this very second. But all in all, I can see that my freezer has been working fine. It's my fresh food that has been giving me issues. And that's obviously a concern. So now that I know this information, what I can do is actually begin to troubleshoot the fault codes that came up. Right. So if you remember, let me go back over here and put this side-by-side view. If you remember, one of the fault codes that came up was, and we can just go back to it over here. If we go to fault codes, one of the fault codes that came up was a fresh food fan feedback missing. All right. So in the fresh food section, it's saying that the feedback from the fan that spins and circulates air and obviously sends that signal back to the main control board, that feedback is not being detected. So that typically means one of two things. Either the fan is not spinning because the motor is broken, right? And or that whole, the little Hall sensor that's in the fan that's feeding back the information is not functional. In either case, I would have to replace the fan. And then the other thing could be also a wire harness, right? It could be a wire harness problem. Those are a bit more difficult to pinpoint, but let's go ahead and see the status of the fan, right? Because it's telling me that the fan has some sort of issue. So I want to find out, what's going on in that section. Now, in order to do this, we're going to go back to the diagnostic features, and we are going to select something called Operate Loads. And in Operate Loads, you notice that there's a button at the bottom that says Enter Service Mode, okay? That button is going to allow me to enter service mode essentially the same way that if you've looked at a service manual, right? They tell you press 3 keys, let go, you'll see some flashing lights, press another key, and then you're in service mode. So all that mumbo jumbo stuff about pressing key code sequences, you can throw it out the window, because with SmartHQ Service, all you need to do is press this button right over here, boop, and I just heard a relay click, and what I am now in is service mode. So the unit's in service mode. I have full control of this refrigerator via my mobile device. The main control is no longer controlling the unit. I'm controlling it right from here. So this is kind of like my remote control. And one of the easiest ways to prove that is if you open the doors, in this case, we'll open the fridge door, you notice that the lights are off. Okay, typically when we open the door, obviously the lights come back on, right? But in this case, the door is open and the lights are off. So what I'm going to show you right over here very easily, we're going to go to doors and lights, and I'm going to show you how with a simple push of a button, we're able to activate something as simple as the lights right in the fresh food section. So let's go ahead and hit the on key, and just like magic, the lights come on. And just as easy as I was able to do that, we're going to go ahead and turn them off. So we're going to hit off, and now the lights are off. So obviously, we've activated our lights, much like with the push of a button. I mean, much like turning on the light switch, right? So now I want to go back to my fans, and I want to test that particular fan, or if I want to, I can test every single fan at the same time, and then find out which one's bad. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and press all fans on. And what that's going to do is that's going to activate every fan at high speed. Okay, just so everybody knows out there. So we're going to hit all fans on. And you're going to notice on your end, right, I'm looking at it on my screen, but you're going to notice that the freezer evap fan all the way up at top is showing the load status as high, meaning it's running at high speed, and the RPMs are also showing right below. So the freezer evaporator fan is running at 2200 RPM, roughly. Now it's at 2400, so it went up a little bit. That's good. The condenser fan right below is running at high speed, and it's giving me a feedback of 1500 or so RPMs, which in this case, SmartHQ Service is indicating as good, because it's not in red. Anything that's in red, it's a problem potentially. Now we go to the fresh food evap fan, and take a look at this. Even though the fresh food evaporator fan is running at high speed, the RPMs are showing 0, which indicates two things. Number one, the fact that it went from a status of off to high means my main board is sending the signal to the fan to run at high speed. So my main board, I would say it's good in this case, right? I'm very confident based on this information here that my main board is not the problem. The RPMs though, the fact that the fan is not feeding back data to the main board in terms of like how many revolutions per minute, that indicates that there's a problem in the fan section. More than likely it's a fan motor, or it could also, if you open the door and kind of take out the evaporator cover, it could be jammed up with ice, right? But of course we can look at the evaporator thermistors for that as well and see what that problem is. So in this case, I can assure you, based on this information, because I see the load status go from off to high, and let me go ahead and do that just real quick here. I'm going to turn all the fans off. And in this case, we're just going to isolate the fresh food evaporator fan. Okay, this is a very important concept to understand, because if you can get this allows you to use less parts and be able to pinpoint exactly which is the part that's causing the issue. So you notice right now that in the fresh food evaporator fan section, the load status shows off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on at a different speed now. I'm going to go to medium, just to see if my main board is able to send signal, not high, but medium speed. Okay, I'm just arbitrarily picking it. So we'll pick on medium, and you notice that the load status changes from off to MED. So there it is, medium speed. Now, the main board is expecting feedback from the fresh food evap fan, but it's still showing 0 RPM. And because I know my main board is good, and the only two components that could be causing this is main board or evaporator fan, I know that the problem is not the main board, it's the fan. In this case, I would replace the fan, and I have a very high probability that that's what's causing the issue. Could it be a wire harness? Yes, it could. But in this case, you'd have to go in there and take a look. Maybe if there's corrosion, maybe there's some moisture, something along those lines, or maybe the main control board, something's disconnecting, something's loose. Most of the time, your wire harness is, for the most part, I haven't seen it go, too many issues with it. In this particular case, I would place a good bet that the fan is bad, and I would replace that fan, and more than likely it would resolve the issue. And if we think about this from, let's say, a washing machine, right? You have a drain pump that's not operating. Well, you could check the drain pump. You can take the unit apart, pull the drain pump out, check resistance, check the voltage that's coming from the main board to the drain pump. That's a lot of work, let me tell you. All right, it's a lot of work. It takes you a long time. So does this, right? Checking the fresh food evaporator fan for voltage resistance would have taken you a long time. But in this particular case, with the push of a button, we were able to diagnose this in seconds, literally. Think about how fast I was able to check every thermistor temperature value and the fan as well. Something that would have taken me, let's say, a half hour. In minutes, I was able to do it. So that's the beauty of SmartHQ Service, and that's where we say efficiency is one of the biggest benefits here, because we just showed you how efficiently we were able to diagnose this issue. And if you've noticed something, my friends, I have not moved from this chair. I've been sitting here, leaning back on this refrigerator, leaning on my fridge, just like you need to lean on your rep. And I was able to quickly diagnose and assess the situation without taking anything apart. All right, so that's one example that I wanted to show you. I just want to see if there's any questions out there, by the way. Reggie, just kind of ping me, let me know. But if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic. All right, so let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit over here, go back to our PowerPoint presentation that we have, because we do have some more slides to show. Nothing too crazy, but take a look at these examples, my friends. These examples are pretty cool, right? This is the cycle history feature that I showed you earlier that showed the temperature values of the refrigerator in Fahrenheit and what the temperature has been over the last couple of days. We have some examples here where cycle history can really help you identify if the problem is user related or if it's if it's an actual problem with the unit. So if you look at the young lady who is frustrated because the washer is taking over 2 hours to finish the load, you're not alone. I've seen this happen multiple times. And one of the things that typically, or the gentleman below that's having to wring out the clothes after after the wash cycle is done because they came out soaking wet, or the young lady in the left that's, troubled by a warm refrigerator compartment, right? All of this, these are things that I like to call no defect found situations, right? No defect found cases. And NDF is very difficult to overcome because a lot of the time it's really subjective, right? Your customer has the perception, or not even the perception, but they are convinced that there's a problem with the appliance, right? They're convinced, they don't think it's a problem. They're convinced that there's a problem. Now, it's your job out there as a technician to convince them otherwise, right? That there's no problem. But how do you do that? Well, as I showed you before with the application, right? You have now tangible evidence in the palm of your hand. Let me just exit service mode here for a second. You have tangible evidence that basically says, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, it says right here on the app that, for example, for the fridge, right, temperature, maybe they left the door open for 10 minutes and you'll be able to see that. Or on a washing machine, you could say, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, I can see here that you've been selecting only the speed cycle. And you told me that you've been washing towels and bedding. And of course, if you select the speed wash cycle and you throw in there heavy towels, the machine's going to go out of balance. And of course, it's going to take a longer time to finish the load. So that's the reason why the problems are happening. But if you just select the right cycle, all of that is going to go away. That makes it easier. And let me tell you, this is reality. I'm not making this up. Customers will believe this bad boy right here more than they'll believe what comes out of our mouths. Okay, you know that, I know that. Whenever you can show tangible evidence and place it in the customer's hand and they can see it, feel it, they're going to be more convinced because this little guy over here is neutral, right? It's not taking any sides. There's no vested interest in the computer in SmartHQ to lie or to make stories up. It's going to call it as it is, right down the middle, even Steven 50-50. Okay, so that being said, my friends, that's the cycle history feature, and it is super powerful. Learn it, understand it, master it, because it will save you a ton of headaches, especially when you're trying to explain to your customer that the problem is not the machine, it's them, right? How they're using it. This is your go-to tool right here. All right, that being said, my friends, let's go to another issue, right, that we run into, and that's sometimes, defrost issues, right? Defrost problems. So we have a freezer defrost system or a fresh food defrost system that's not working. Maybe you have a big ball of ice, maybe you have frost buildup, who knows, right? And in order to diagnose the defrost system, there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? There's obviously your element, or the heater, right? The defrost heater, the cal rod heater. There's the evaporator thermistor that could be causing the issue. There's also maybe a main board that's not sending voltage to the heater. So which one is it? Do you throw in every part? Do you throw in one and pray and hope for the best? Which one are you gonna throw in? I'll tell you again from my experience. When I was running service calls, I didn't want my boss to yell at me and be like, "Hey, you went out there and you replaced the wrong part. You got to go back because you messed it up." I didn't want to hear any of it. So what I would do, and again, I'm speaking for myself, I would take every possible part that I need, and I wouldn't troubleshoot. I would just throw them all in because I was so busy. I had 10 other service calls to run. It was already like 11 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to get home at a decent time. So you know what? I'm just throwing every part in. I know it's going to fix it, and voila, let the customer deal with the cost, or the manufacturer if it's under warranty, whatever the case may be. But that's very inefficient, and you may not have even needed to replace anything. Again, like we talked about before, right? So I'm going to show you right here how we're going to diagnose the defrost system that normally would have taken you maybe an hour to diagnose, right? You have to pull the unit out of the point of installation, check the thermistor values, check voltage from the main board, take the food out of the compartment, put it somewhere, take the evaporator cover off, look at the test points for the heating element, check for resistance. All this is making me so tired right now. I don't want to talk about it. In fact, I just want to go take a nap right now, but I'm not going to because I'm obviously with you showing you this tool. So let's go ahead and analyze. In this case, let's talk about the freeze. We talked about the fresh food section already. Let's talk about the freezer section. So we're going to go to Diagnostics, Operate Loads, and then again, we're going to enter service mode. So we enter service mode, and I'm going to diagnose my defrost heater in the freezer area. All right, the defrost heater. I want to make sure that it's working and that there's no problems. So for that, I'm going to go to heaters. So sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen. Let me go back over here. So from the dashboard screen, you go into the diagnostic features, operate loads. We're going to select, obviously we've entered service mode already, heaters. And now I'm going to go ahead and select my freezer defrost heater. But before I do that, I want to point something out over here. Take a look at the temperature value of the freezer evaporator thermistor. It's minus 9.6, almost minus 10 degrees. Okay, let's call it minus 9 degrees Fahrenheit. So that area of the refrigerator overall, right, that particular area is at minus 9 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the freezer defrost heater, and you're going to notice that in a few minutes, so let me go ahead and do that just with a push of a button. In a few minutes, after the heater has been running, you're going to notice that the temperature will go up, right, in my freezer evaporator thermistor. Now, is it going to do it? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But if it does, right, if it goes from minus 9, minus 8, whatever it is right now, to something higher, in the next few minutes or so, that's a clear indication that when I ran the freezer defrost heater test, my main control board sent voltage to the heater. That's also an indication that my heater is able to generate heat because there are no open circuits within it. And what I mean by that is there could be an open thermal fuse, an open bimetal device, right? Different things depending on the model that you're using. But in this case, if we have an entirely closed loop, then in theory, the heater will begin to emit heat, and my evaporator thermistor will detect that, the rise in temperature, and of course display it on my SmartHQ service app. All these things, okay, would have required you to, again, either remove all the food from the compartment, check your resistance, make sure that the thermal fuse is not open, or your bimetal. Go to the back of the control board, check voltage on the main control board, make sure that it is sending voltage to the heating element. And of course, you also have to check your thermistor to ensure that the thermistor is able to detect changes in temperature, right? Either a rise or a drop in temperature, whatever it is that you're doing. So let's think about the thermistor, right? For us to check a thermistor, what do we need to do? We need to pull it out, maybe dip it in a little cup of ice water. That's what we've always been taught, right? Take the thermistor, put it in ice water, put your resistance, put your multimeter leads on it and check for resistance. And then, of course, you have to look at a chart, right? You have to look at a chart that is going to tell you what temperature equals what resistance value. That is a lot of work. All right, that's maybe your world right now. Okay, especially property management. That's your world, right? Not we've been talking to a lot of property management companies recently. In fact, I just came back from beautiful Boca Raton last week, and speaking to some of these folks, we were working on a unitized washer dryer, right? You know, the one that's like stacked, right? It's got the washer at the bottom, the dryer at the top. In order to get into the service mode of some of the things like the mode shift motor or the drain pump or water valves, there's a lot of turning and twisting of the jog dial and pressing some buttons. And then you also have to understand binary code. What the heck is binary code, right? In order to be able to just diagnose what's going on. So, we provided training for that, and, it took a while. It took maybe a half hour at least to get these folks to understand some of these basic concepts that everybody has to know. But then when we went ahead and connected SmartHQ, and it's actually not a half hour. We probably spent about an hour to try to understand the full service service mode, right, in that unit. Once we plugged in SmartHQ, boom, in a matter of minutes, we were able to quickly diagnose everything that was going on. And just like that, my friends, let's go back over here to our friend. You notice that the freezer defrost heater has been on for 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Another thing I want you to notice is that the load status is on, which means that my main board is sending voltage to the heater. If it wasn't sending voltage, more than likely that load status would be off, and that would tell me you have a bad main board. But in this case, I know my main board is good. And because I'm noticing a rise in temperature on the freezer evaporator thermistor, I can tell right away that everything seems to be working properly. Now, if you're wondering why the thermistor is taking so long to go up in temperature, that's because it was pretty cold in there, right? It was freezing in there, right? Minus 10 degrees, completely frozen. So the heater is on, it's starting to radiate heat, it's starting to melt whatever little frost or a lot of frost is in there. So it's going to take some time for it to really radiate a lot of heat for that thermistor to detect it. But once it does, once it gets cooking, you're going to see the temperature is going to spike up very, very quickly. So we'll give that a few more minutes. And while we're there, my friends, I want to go ahead and just kind of show you a couple things that we have over here on our PowerPoint. Whoops. All right. So one thing that I want everybody to be aware of is our Fix It Like a Pro series. All right. So this QR code right over here. You can also visit our website for it, but if you can scan that QR code, that's our Fix It Like a Pro live training series. So just like Encompass has live training for you, GE Appliances has also put together some live training events. We actually have one October 9th. If you want to join it, it's going to be on dishwashers. But this is where we go step by step, almost exactly what you're seeing me do right here in this particular event. We're going to show you how to utilize SmartHQ, but also we're going to get into some of the hot topics of GE Appliances, right? It's only GE Appliances, of course, but we have our entire crew that helps us, our production team behind the scenes, things that you don't get to see. And what's cool about going into that series is the fact that you can view previous recordings, right? So there you see me doing I think I'm in the studio, the Monogram studio, and that's a Monogram dishwasher. We're showing how to use SmartHQ. But you can also see, for example, how to fix PTAC units. We talk about schematic diagrams. There's a video that we have on our ASTI convention that we were at last year. So a lot of different cool things that you can take advantage of by visiting that or going to that, scanning that QR code, and that's going to take you to the Fix It Like a Pro training series, which of course, if you can't scan the QR code right now, you can just simply visit our website, smarthqpro.com/service, and that is going to allow you to register as well. So let's go ahead and go back over here to our friend. Let's see what's going on. And there we go. We can see the freezer defrost heater has been on for about six minutes or so. The temperature now is at 5.87 degrees Fahrenheit. And from this point on, Now that we've gone over the zero mark, right? We've kind of gone over the high point, or the, whatever you wish to call it. Now it's going to start to go up. All right. So let's go ahead and kill this test, and I'm going to just turn it off. And one thing I do want to mention is this: even though we shut off the heater's not going to cool down like that. It's going to be hot. All right. So if for whatever reason you would have taken out the evaporator cover, and maybe you want to, you shut off the heater, do not touch it. I've seen technicians do this. They're like, oh, it's off. It should be cool. They go touch it. It's still hot, and they get a nice little tattoo across their fingers. Again, the way we know that is because if you notice the freezer evaporator thermistor, the temperature it's going to continue to rise, right? Because again, there's still heat being radiated from that area. So what I want to do right now is I want to exit service mode, and I'm going to show you one last test over here. So we're going to exit service mode. We're going to go back to the dashboard screen. And I want to show you quickly some service documentation here. So we're going to do a test on the sealed system, but before I do that, I want to point out, we talked about service documentation. I want to point out how easy it is to access the service documentation for this fridge or any other product. You simply go to the section that says product features, manuals, and bulletins. And in there, you're going to be able to find the mini manual, again, recent bulletins. If you are an affiliated GE servicer, you're going to be able to find training bulletins, so bulletins that show you how to do a variety of things. I can't name them all right here, but let's go ahead and access the mini manual for this particular example. Okay, and again, I'm going to take myself out of the picture so you can see what this looks like. So if we flip our mobile device horizontally, you notice that we have the copy of the mini manual right then and there, right? And I can see schematics, I can see how to enter service mode. And look at this, when I pinch to zoom, take a look at the crystal clear graphics that you are able to see, right? So it tells you how to enter Sabbath mode, how to navigate the fault code tests on different models, on Cafe, on Profile. It gives you what the modes are when you're in fault code mode. But again, we don't need to do any of this stuff because we're going to do all this from SmartHQ. But most importantly, take a look at the crystal clear graphics when it comes to schematic diagrams. Let's just say that I needed to know what resistance value that freezer defrost heater is, because I really wanted to test it with my multimeter. I can simply go over here, pinch to zoom, and I'm being told by this mini manual that my freezer defrost heater is 37 ohms. It has 2 thermal fuses in line with it that are going to open at 171 degrees, or when the temperature exceeds 171 degrees Fahrenheit. And the test points are going to be at connector J1C pin 2 and connector J1 pin 4, or J1B pin number 2, and it's going to be an orange and a blue wire. So all I have to do, look for an orange and a blue wire, and my reading will be 37 ohms, right? So just like that, you can get, the service manual, the bulletins, all from your mobile device, all at your fingertips. And a lot of people also ask me, where's the Ethernet port located on every unit? You can go to Ethernet port location, open up that file, and every model that we have, let me see if I can flip this. Yeah, I think I can. Oh, cool. Okay, if you're working on an oven, right? If you're working on a, on a dishwasher. So let's go to where's the dishwashers? That's wall ovens. Dishwasher, the port is located at the bottom, right, where the main control board is. All of this information is available to you at your fingertips. If you're working on a washing machine, where is that port located? Boom, right there. There's a port for washing machines. So this tool, super intuitive, super easy to use, and again, well worth the investment, my friends, if you're running GE service calls. So the last test today we're going to run is the cooling system. So for that, we're going to go to diagnostic tests now. So let me go ahead and take myself over here. Boop, boop. Let's switch gears. Okay, let's go to diagnostic tests. And now we're going to enter service mode again. And we're going to go ahead and go to the extended, not the extended mode, sorry. We're going to scroll down over here and we look at a couple different things. First thing I can do is activate my 3-way valve, right? Because this is a dual evaporator refrigerator. I can activate my 3-way valve to send refrigerant to both the fresh food and the freezer section, or I can make it so that the refrigerant only goes to the freezer area. in this case, what I want to do is I want to send it to both, because maybe I just performed a sealed system repair and I want to ensure that refrigerant can flow to both areas. Now, again, we're going to go ahead and start the test. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to select fresh food and freezer. So now I know refrigerant will go to the fresh food and the freezer section. Well, I don't really know. I got to wait for the test to run, but I will know. And then we're going to press compressor and condenser high speed. So the compressor is running and the condenser fan is running at a high speed, right? Anytime the compressor runs, condenser fan has to run. So we notice that the compressor is on. The condenser fan is at 1500 RPM, so all is good. And then the other thing I want you to notice is this. The freezer evaporator and the fresh food evaporator thermistors are at the bottom. This is showing me what the current temperature values are. After a little while, what I want to be able to see is those temperature values drop, right? Because I'm sending refrigerant to the evaporator coils. So what this allows you to do is to confidently assess a post-repair situation, right? So after you've done your sealed system, after you put everything back together, whether you braze things or you use the lock ring system, which by the way is fantastic. I just attended a training for it with my buddy Jesse. Jesse, shout out to you, my friend. I'll see you very soon, probably next week at PSA. But he's a fantastic individual, very entertaining trainer, and that's always good, right? You want to sit there and be bored to death and be like, all right, when's this over? He's great. He showed me the lock ring system, so if you haven't heard about it, learn about it. Talk to Reggie, talk to Jesse. That kind of rhymed a little bit, right? It's a good way to to do sealed systems. But anyway, going back to this, let's say we did a sealed system repair on this fridge, and I want to know, if the sealed system is working, right? If my three-way valve is actually sending refrigerant to the areas that I want it to send to, if the compressor is pumping the refrigerant to the different sections of the fridge, all of that. Or if my thermistors are capable of detecting a drop in temperature. So all of that, the app will allow you to do. And normally, right, what we do as technicians, and again, I'm going to speak for myself. This is not you. This is me. This is it's not you, it's me, right? I invented that phrase, by the way. It's not you, it's me. But all of this stuff that, that we do, like, for example, remove all the food from the compartments, take the evaporator covers off, and look for a nice frost pattern. You don't have to do that anymore. And just let me, like, little kind of, what do they call that thing? Disclosure statement or something along those lines. The best way to check if refrigerant is going to, an evaporator, by far, hands down, look for a frost pattern, right? That's physically the best way to do it. I highly recommend you always doing that, but it's very time consuming, and sometimes you don't have the time to do that. So in lieu of that, SmartHQ Service, because it's going to show a drop in temperature after, some period of time, you're going to be able to know that the refrigerant has gone there, and of course that will generate a frost pattern as well. So this is an easy way for you to do a quick check, just to make sure that everything's good. And this could be happening, while you're putting away your tools, while you're speaking to your customer, maybe cleaning up your area that you've completely turned upside down because you're doing a sealed system repair. A lot of things going on, right? So this is almost like a post-repair functionality verification test that allows you, the technician, to check your work, right? Always check your work. Remember math class, right? Your teacher used to say, check your work, like before you hand in your paper. Same thing here. You want to make sure that it's working properly. You want to have the assurance that the repair has been done successfully, and you want to pass that assurance on to your customer as well, right? You don't want them to say, hey, I don't know what this technician was doing. There was a lot of things going on, and I'm not even sure if my fridge is going to work. But if you have this tool and you're able to show, look at what the temperature, and we can actually start to see the temperature drop in the freezer evap section. So it was at 10 degrees. It started out. Now it's at 6 degrees, 5 degrees. It's going to begin to drop as the temperature, again, is detected as going down and down by the thermistors, right? With this evidence, with this tangible data, you can show your customer and say, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I can assure you the repair has been successfully made. We can clearly see here on the mobile device that the temperatures are dropping, which indicates that refrigerant is good. And you don't have to say it like that fancy, right? But you can simply say, the fridge is cooling, the freezer is cooling. Obviously, give it some time for everything to really settle down in terms of temperature, and all will be good. Customer's convinced, you are convinced as the technician, and everybody's happy. So one of the easiest ways to diagnose using SmartHQ is this this cooling test. And of course, you could do an ice maker test as well. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to run out of time soon, but you can check your entire ice maker that way as well. And you can tell if it's, if you have ice maker issues, you can tell if it's a bad water valve, if it's an auger motor, if it's the ice maker or the main board, all of that from your mobile device in just a matter of minutes. So again, a repair that would have normally taken you hours sometimes to figure out, right, to diagnose, is only taking you a matter of minutes. In fact, I was at the PSA convention last year in Vegas, and I had a technician come up to me and say, hey, Juan, since we started using this tool, I've actually had to pretend that I'm doing work and kind of spend a little bit more time in the house, just kind of, doing nothing, because my customers believe that, or they don't believe that I've actually diagnosed it, because I'm doing it so quickly, right? They're expecting me to be there an hour, maybe 45 minutes, pulling the unit out of the point of installation, testing boards. And I'm, in a matter of minutes, I'm able to do it from my phone. And, it's crazy how much time you can save with this. But it's true, right? It's a very intuitive tool also. You're not spending hours and hours learning it. If you really need, training on it, we do have available that Fix It Like a Pro series. In fact, let me go ahead and pull it back up again for those of you that may have missed it. Oops, keep pressing the wrong key over here. So if you scan that QR code, that is going to take you to the Fix It Like a Pro website. Or again, you can visit our page, smarthqpro.com/service. And that's another way you can access this Fix It Like a Pro training series, which of course, as I mentioned before, is live videos. You can even chat with us right on the spot. You can chat with us, send us your questions, comments, things like that. And you can also watch on-demand events that have happened previously before, pre-recorded. You can watch them on demand. So if you miss something, or if you just have some time, that maybe you want to train your staff, bring everybody in for a training on GE appliances, we have those videos available for you. And our library just keeps getting bigger and bigger, right, as we add more and more content there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at one last time over here at what our temperature values are, because obviously the compressor has been running for 7 minutes now, and we can clearly see that both the fresh food and the freezer evaporator thermistors have dropped significantly from where they started, and they're going to continue to drop more and more and more as the refrigerant is getting to those two evaporator coils, okay? So I know my compressor is running. I know my condenser fan is running, obviously. I know that my three-way valve was capable of sending refrigerant to both the fresh food and the freezer areas, and I know that both my evaporator thermistors are able to detect a drop in temperature, the delta T that we talk about, right? That change in temperature over time. So with this, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and shut off the test, because I think we're pretty much convinced that the sealed system is working. So we're going to hit the all off button. In the interest of thoroughness, we always ask that you exit service mode. So exit service mode. And now the unit has control of itself, right? The lights, if I open the doors, the lights are on because the unit has control of itself. And we can go back over here to our dashboard screen. And one last thing I want to mention, the fault codes that you saw, right? The fault codes that I showed, I highly recommend that after you finish your repair, you go ahead and clear them, right? You want to clear them because I'm not going to do it now, but you want to clear them because if you have to go back, hopefully you don't have to, but if you have to go back, or maybe another technician goes back, right? As a courtesy, you want to have those fault codes clear so that they're not confused. Think about it, right? If you go in there and you have 10 fault codes, you're going to think there's 10 problems. That's not necessarily the case. But if you clear them and then you go back and there's one fault code, you know that that is the one and only problem, right? So that's another nice feature that we have on our SmartHQ tool. Last thing I want to mention, my friends, while I still have you here, is the bundle pack, right? So as Reggie mentioned, very exciting news that we have coming up. GE Appliances, the SmartHQ Pro team, has developed this bundle pack where you actually purchase the SmartHQ Service module directly from your parts distributor. And what's going to happen is, so you go to Encompass, right? You buy this module. You're walking out with not only the module itself, right, that you need, but it's going to have a code in there that when you go to the SmartHQ Service customer portal allows you to manually or allows you to be self-sufficient and manage your licenses, how many accounts you have, check your payment details, all that good stuff. So you're going to be able to walk out of the Encompass store with your module, do everything yourself, right? Activate your own account and be able to use SmartHQ Service in a matter of minutes, where before it was kind of a little bit of a painful process. You had to request access, we have to approve it. All of that is gone with the bundle pack. You walk out with 6 months worth of subscription and a module. So you can start using it the very same day, which is a beautiful thing. And we could not have made it any easier. And it's going to be available to you at your local Encompass dealer. So make sure you reach out to Reggie, reach out to anybody that you work with, with Encompass, and they'll be able to get you that bundle package. All right, my friends.